Hello cinephile and welcome to a brand new episode of the Showcast, a podcast series that brings you candid conversations from film festivals and film markets worldwide. Brought to you by The Film Verdict and hosted by yours truly, Matt Micucci. And today we continue our coverage of the 57th Karlovy International Film Festival. In this episode we shine a spotlight on two remarkable documentaries that grace this year's programme. Although their specific contexts differ, these films share common themes that resonate deeply, including political promises, socioeconomic disparity, personal stories, and critical examination of leadership. We'll be speaking with director Cyril Aris about Dancing on the Edge of a Volcano and with Luka Beradze about Smiling Georgia. Fire up an Audiotini and listen to the audio waves as they fly through the air. First up on our agenda is Dancing on the Edge of a Volcano. Set against the backdrop of the catastrophic explosion that shook the Port of Beirut on August 4th, 2020, this documentary follows a film crew facing an extraordinary dilemma. Should they press on with their movie production amidst the ruins or succumb to the overwhelming chaos engulfing their city? The sheer power of this film garnered it a special jury mention, and today we have the privilege of having its director, Cyril Aris, joining us to provide us deeper insights into this poignant work. Hi Cyril, welcome to the Showcast, and look, here we are in Karlovy. How does it feel to be back?
Yeah, very good. Yet again, right? We find each other in Karlovy once again 5 years later. No, of course, it's great to be back. It's great to be back in the main competition with the documentary. It's very humbling. So, when the festival invited our film, we were thrilled because last time we had a great experience and it was a great platform to launch the film and, to promote it. So it's both humbling and very rewarding to be here with this new film.
Absolutely, and it's great to see you. And actually, your film is called Dancing on the Edge of a Volcano, and it's actually, I watched Costa Brava when it premiered in Venice. I think 2 years ago it must have been, and it was fascinating to see this film because it's almost like what happened, and I didn't realize that whole production was so dramatic and so troublesome. But my first question to you about it is, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Like, how is it that you ended up being there and filming the situation as it unrolled?
It was neither the chicken nor the egg. It was actually August 4th, 2020, and the port explosion of Beirut. That was really like the starting point, because I never had any intention to film any documentary about the process of making Costa Brava. I was involved with the team, being the editor, so I was going to be more involved in post-production. But when August 4th happened, I instinctively started filming my city, so the streets that I grew up in, the neighborhoods that I live in, and seeing them completely wounded, completely disfigured was quite a shock. And raising or lifting a camera and putting that screen between you and this new reality that you have to digest makes it a bit more manageable, I would say. It was quite inspiring to see Lebanese people from all corners of Lebanon flocking to Beirut to clean the streets, rebuild, seeing these grassroots efforts of rebuilding, because of course nothing was orchestrated by the government because they're incompetent and criminal, to say the least.
Where were you when the explosion happened?
Oh, I was in Beirut. I was actually heading to the production office where the whole team was, because they had just kicked off the pre-production when the office blew up completely, and they were.
So you heard it, you felt it, basically.
Well, on that day, all of Beirut felt it. They actually heard it in Cyprus. It's not that we all heard it. Everyone thought that the explosion happened on their street because it was so strong that I thought that the street I was driving, because I was in my car, the street I was driving on was just like an explosion occurred, and then, you called someone else and they tell you, I think an explosion happened on my street. You're like, what? And then, you start to comprehend what's happening. So just to go back to filming, people and this effort of reconstruction in this context of destruction was, quite inspiring. And then my first question was, so, okay, what is my role as a filmmaker? Where do I fit in this equation? What is the role of art and specifically cinema in this context? And then, when I saw that Munya and Miriam and Joe and their team were all going through that same question of do we keep shooting? Do we not? Do we keep living as if nothing had happened? I mean, not as if nothing had happened, but do we continue our efforts, I realized that we were asking the same questions. So I pointed my camera at them. They really offered me the narrative. Like, I had a dramatic question that needed to be answered. It's like, are we going to shoot or not? Are they going to succeed? They're going to decide to go for it. There's going to be obstacles, etc., etc. So, through that narrative, I can actually sustain a feature-length documentary. But this was just the excuse to try to answer the bigger questions and, try to explore the bigger themes that I was interested in, which are related to, just like I said, the role of art in times of crisis, how to overcome such a national, collective, traumatic event. How do you create when everything around you is going against you and is trying to destroy? And, how can you keep dreaming when all your dreams are shattered, physically with all the buildings being ravaged and destroyed, and mentally with you being stuck in that traumatic event that the port explosion was.
Right, because I was going to ask you, if you were to condense the emotions into which that kind of helped you press the recorder button on your camera, what would they be? Would it be more outrage, anger, frustration, all of the above?
It is all of the above, like you really go through all the different stages. So, in the beginning, there's definitely disbelief. In the beginning you don't understand what's going on, but then there's like this disbelief, this denial of this new reality, like not wanting to accept that. And then, of course, once you start understanding what happened, there's the intense rage. I don't think I've experienced anger as much as August 8th, 2020, which was like 4 days after the explosion, when there was a call for a nationwide protest. And like I'm using violent words, but like to behead our leaders. It was that kind of anger of these people need to die. Like they need to die, but
because the circumstances in which this explosion happened was ridiculous, insane, right?
No, because it's the result of corruption, like a series of unfortunate events that are all tied by corruption and greed, thinking that there's no accountability. And the sad truth is there is still no accountability for the explosion. The same leaders are still in power, which, feeds into either the rage or the complete desperation. Because you do have people that grew so desperate that they left. But I thought that the people who choose to stay, the people who choose to keep dreaming and keep creating, are worth a documentary, obviously.
Do you think that those people who are still in power are going to be upset by this documentary?
I would hope so, because it means that they do have feelings. So like if they can experience that would be nice. But honestly, I don't think they care. These are people who did a war for 15 years. And then at the end of the war, they just pardoned themselves and wore suits and went into the parliament. So we're really talking about cruel beasts. The explosion happened. It shook them. It's like, okay, we might lose our position of power. Clearly, there's a lot of anger, but by the end of the day, nothing really happened. So for a film to tickle them would be the irony. But I really hope and wish that cinema could have that power. It would really elevate our role into something quite powerful.
And do you think that cinema has that power nowadays?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, historically, if you go back to film history, and I don't know, first example that pops in mind would be the French cinema of the 60s that really pushed a political and social agenda, ended up feeding into May 68 and the student protests and all of that. So you want to think that cinema did have that power. I don't think it was cinema by itself. I think it's a collection of stuff, cinema being part of it. But for me, on a personal level, I of course think cinema is the most powerful tool one can ever have, because movies are empathy machines. When I'm watching a film that was shot or that tells the story of a human being in the other side of the world, and I'm empathizing and crying and laughing with that person, I feel like a better person basically afterwards, because I understand more this other culture, this other human. Even if it's a dark character, there's always the sense of empathy. When it's a good film, there's always the sense of empathy and understanding the struggle and empathizing with the struggle. I think it's really innate to us as humans, and I think that movies really trigger that emotion click or switch, emotional switch, and it's very important. So on a personal level, of course, I'm going to tell you that movies are the most important, but I'm a I'm a filmmaker, I'm a director, so I'm deluded in that in that idea for sure.
Even if it absolutely wasn't true, you wouldn't say it anyways. But I certainly don't think that it's true anyways. I think that cinema does still have power. But like, just thinking about the whole process of making a documentary about a film that is such a difficult production on so many levels, do you think that the fact that you were there with the camera capturing it was almost like helped or gave strength to people? We talked about cinema being an empathy machine, but maybe the filmmaking process itself, there's something to that as well, isn't there?
Absolutely. I think you're putting it, very eloquently and very correctly. The reason why they ended up moving forward with their film is subconsciously or consciously, I don't know, it was to find this community and to find comfort in, not just the process of making art or of creating something, but of being together, working for one objective. We're all here focusing our energy onto one thing, onto this one shot, onto making this day. So definitely for them, making the film was offering them all the solace, all the comfort and the catharsis. And for me, it was exactly the same. Filming them, experiencing these feelings was also transmitted to me. So it really felt like, and Miriam says this in the film, a collective healing therapy for all of us. And from that perspective, I think, this is why we love making films. This is what it does to us. It heals. It helps us overcome something as traumatic as August 4th. Instead of, sitting at home and replaying the sound of the explosion and, all of these dark and negative feelings, you can actually exteriorize or exercise, all of these feelings out of you in the process of creating something.
It's almost superficial to talk about or consider this film simply also as a film that shows the struggle of bringing a movie to life, which is already in itself incredibly difficult and probably getting even more difficult as time goes by. But it does bring to mind other movies that kind of show that in a sense. So I know this is rather superficial from the other film questions that I've asked you, but in a way, do you feel like being in the midst of that situation was almost like an intense course in filmmaking? Like right now, you're confident because you've been through the hell that was the production of Karlovy. You witnessed it. You feel like you've learned an incredible amount.
It's very funny because Miriam was saying yesterday, we were joking around, and she's like, I think this film should be shown on day one in all film schools. Yeah. It's like, if you're willing to go through this and you still want to make films, then okay, you have your place here. Otherwise, you
agreed.
Drop out. But
you thought Lost in La Mancha was bad. This is
yeah, no, but you see, like, okay, Lost in La Mancha had complications that rose from the filmmaking process itself. Here you have a lot of the complications and the obstacles that come from Lebanon and the crumbling of Beirut. When we're talking about gas shortages, so we cannot go to the location, this is not a filmmaking problem. This is a Lebanon problem. This is a corruption and mismanagement problem. When we're talking about not being able to make business deals because every single day the currency is devaluating. Again, this is not a producing problem. It is a producing problem, but it stems from the fact that you have no base and you're in the middle of an economic crisis. So yes, of course, making films is very, very hard, of course. But here, when you're adding a context that's going against you in every single way, then it becomes, something else. And if you're willing to go through that, then welcome to film school.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks again.
Next up, we meet Luka Beradze, director of Smiling Georgia, which transports us to a tranquil Georgian village where the governing party, during their 2012 election campaign, enticed the poorest residents with the promise of new teeth in exchange for their votes. But after the election defeat, the film uncovers a bitter and toothless aftermath, raising questions about the worth of ordinary people in the eyes of self-serving politicians. Luka, lovely to meet you. Thank you very much for joining us. We are in Karlovy and you are presenting the film Smiling Georgia. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
The story itself is so fascinating. It's interesting. It's almost surreal in some sense. And I wouldn't want to do it a disservice by summarizing it myself. So I wondered whether you could tell me a little bit about what your documentary explores.
Yeah, this my film story is about the pre-election campaign, which was held in 2012 in Georgia, and it was the governmental party campaign that they wanted to implement the new teeth to the people about 50 and replace them with the new dentures. So this campaign started very successfully. There was only 2 months this campaign was in the time. But unfortunately, this governmental party lost the election, say they stopped the campaign. So the people were left teethless in several villages. So it was the story, very unique story, and it was not very well spread in Georgia. But I get some years after, and I was very surprised because it's very absurd story, and I wanted to document it, and I went there, and so this film started from that point.
Yeah. Tell me more about the people that you meet, because these are not people that necessarily we see a lot in cinema for sure, but I feel also, they're the people that somehow are not represented in general in the media.
Yes. First time when I went there, I met these people, and I thought I will document only the 15-20 minutes of documents about this campaign. But when I was touching that people, these naive people, they were living very naive, very old style people from the old world. I was so fascinated that I wanted to be with them more and to understand them. And a lot of things I understood from these people, why they participated in that campaign, why they wanted to change the teeth. I understand their way of living. It's very harsh, very unusual living style, and it's very unique and close to the nature also.
Close to the nature, the houses seem like they built them or they fixed them, and then they have their own style of living. But do you think that, when I look at your documentary, they're exploited a lot too by politicians, but also, by, like we said, the media earlier, they don't represent them unless they have a reason to, and very often that reason seems quite selfish.
Yes. The because of this, in this remote place, even the villages, the name is the no-name village. The village has name, no name. It's the Georgian style thing. And this very remote place where the people were living with the nature, in this contrast, the politicians are very, one word, not so good to make this kind of promises to these people. So the media, the politicians, they are only using these people for their goals, and it's very clear from that perspective.
You mentioned earlier that you were fascinated with them. So that means that you were drawn to these people beyond the topic of your documentary. You actually liked them on a personal level. And I noticed throughout the documentary that there are moments that to me felt like poetry, like, I don't know, the one moment that stands out, for example, is this man, I don't know whether he is drunk or feeling euphoria, but he starts dancing or something in the middle of a field. To me, it seemed like Pasolini almost, but it's interesting. So you liked that. And so you used that creatively as well, right? To add some touches. Did you want to pay tribute to the way they live, to their existence, to what they are?
Yeah, you mentioned that this naivety, there's a lot of poetry, a lot of moments of the tiny moments of the poetry. And I wanted to not to use, but to feel that how these people are living in that close to the nature, close to the poetry, and the politicians are making these kind of bad things. You feel the symbol of the corruption, symbol of the political using of the people. Because of this, I wanted to go deep with these people to feel that poetry there. For example, one woman are without legs. She's going and she lives in this kind of very remote place without legs, and it's so different world, and in that contrast we feel the other side, the politician's side, this promises side. So it was like the decision of making the film, how will will feel the film.
The title of the film is Smiling Georgia. Yeah. And looking at your documentary, there are moments where actually I was smiling too, because you know, I guess there's a charm, like you said, to the way that they live, and there's some humor to be found in it. I mean, I love, for example, that in the face of adversity, they don't necessarily spend their days crying about how terrible their life is, you know. Drawing from the title and your work as a filmmaker, speaking of the current state of Georgia, is it a country where people do much smiling? Is there a reason to smile about the situation in Georgia at the moment?
It's a difficult question, but it's a good question. Of course, the program was also called Smiling Georgia, and it's like the style of the politicians to make some Georgian people smile because they think they're not smiling and they're living only they very badly. Yeah, but the people, they have the moments of the self-humor and self-reflection. And so the Georgians have the humor in the very bad situations. So it's like I wanted to picture that also, because in that conditions, the Georgian people can find the moments of the humor, and it makes me very good. How to say it? Yeah. There's not a lot of people moments of smiling, but
and satire, because you embrace the fact that this is absurd. Like, you know, from the very beginning, the guy is like, you know, this politician is like, oh, you're all going to Hollywood next year or something like that. Still, even if they do have good smile, but people want to believe it. Do you think people want to believe these dreams? Because why not? It's fun to believe in it, right?
Yes, they want to believe. Time by time, they fail in these beliefs, but they're still resuming the belief in the future, or I don't know, for the life. But they're living with close to the nature, so they are now they feel very. Very, very healthy and close to the essence, or I don't know. Yeah.
Let's talk about you as a filmmaker then. What is it that drives you? What are the stories that you want to tell? Is there something in particular that made you want to even engage in the cinematic art form?
The story drives me all the time. When I see or I feel the story, there's the very unbelievable thing there inside. If I search or I see or I hear the story, I'm very attracted about this to do not believe and believe together. It's like the absurdity of how the people can be participating in this campaign, how they felt. It's unbelievable. And my films are also, the stories are also this.
And when you make a film like Smiling Georgia, how do you establish a relationship with these people? Because they don't know you, and all of a sudden you come in with cameras and you want to tell their stories. What is their reaction to them? How do you establish a relationship that makes it easier for them to maybe accept you in their midst?
Yeah, I went without the camera first. I went just me, only one guy, and I was time by time I was close to them, and they understand me more and more, because it was difficult to explain them that I'm not a media man. I was filmmaker. It was difficult for them, but I get to them, and I'm becoming godfather of one of my character's grandson. Even now. It was a long period, because I was shooting 2 years, and these 2 years we were in the touch. So it was difficult because without the camera it was like
Takes time. Takes time.
Of course.
But then it sounds like they accepted you in their midst, and it's funny because you go to a place like this, and they probably. These are people that don't know who, Kiarostami or other people like that are, It's like, when they think of films, they probably think of like Hollywood blockbusters with lots of explosions. And all of a sudden you're asking them, I want to make a film about you. And they might even be like, what? Why? Why are you making a film about us? But did they enjoy it in some way? And what did they think about the fact that there was a film made about them?
Yeah, they enjoyed, because in the first time they were little bit scary, but then we went with my friend of cinematographer and the 5 people. For them, the 5 people it's some huge moment, because this place is so remote that one person means a lot. And so 5 people all the time we were shooting this film. Then we are drinking on the table. We are celebrating a whole shooting. So it was great because this is the unique place.
Yeah, it sounds like cinema as a way of creating community in a way. I don't know. I mean, it's like really sometimes people romanticize the fact that a film production can become a family of some sense, but it sounds like something like that happened during this.
Yes, totally.
You became godfather of one of the people's...
Yeah, it was totally, we are creating community because of the place, because of these people, because of from that moments.
And that brings us to the end of yet another captivating episode of the Showcast. We hope you enjoyed this immersive exploration into the world of documentary filmmaking at the 57th Karlovy International Film Festival. We hope these compelling stories have left a lasting impact and provided valuable insights into the human experiences captured on screen. Remember, the world of documentary filmmaking continues to unfold with thought-provoking tales, and the Showcast will be here to bring you more candid conversations about it from film festivals and markets worldwide. Stay tuned for more coverage from the 57th Karlovy International Film Festival. In the meantime, from The Film Verdict, this is Matt Micucci signing off. See you soon.